Right, so welcome to the Math and Graphing Prep Lab. This is your first actual longer lab. It's a virtual lab, which means you don't need your lab kit. You do have to have purchased it, but you could have purchased it as late as like 9 p.m. on the day this is due. And as soon as the purchase goes through, and it's digital, it's just like buying something on Amazon, then it'll give you access to this lab. So you'll click the link in your course and it will take you to this lab. You can't go through the site like you can see me looking at it right now. The only reason I can do this is because of the instructor view that's letting me do it. You have to follow the link from your course to get to this lab. The other piece of information that can be tricky is that if you didn't ever turn in your getting started or your lab safety, so you can see those are right there at the top. If you didn't ever turn them in, you have to do those before it will let you have access to the math and graphing prep. The other thing is that if you got them returned, and most usually the reason that's returned is because of subscripts missing or not having uploaded a picture of your signature. There's lots of notes in the lab to remind you of all of that. You need to resubmit because the system sees if you've gotten something sent back to you to redo, the system sees that as something that hasn't been submitted. So you have to fix and submit those before you can start this lab. So anyways, you would follow the link from your course and it would take you to the Math and Graphing Prep Lab, and that would open. We'll be starting on the exploration section, and they always have these test your knowledge questions. You know how that is. When you get done with that, you'll be able to do the exploration. You'll notice over here in the corner, up here, you're going to have 6 pages of exploration. It just is going to tell you about stuff. One of the pages has to do with data tables and graphing, and we actually aren't doing the final section of the experimental section, so you can just skip past that. So when you get to experimentation, and again, you can't click on this until you've gone through all the explore. There's the overview. And then you can look at materials, and this materials list is a little bit too much. Honestly, you don't need the printer. You can use a digital calculator. You are going to need a camera phone, smartphone, something like that, a pencil, and some paper because you have to take pictures of your calculations. All right, so, and you can keep going. So this is the first experiment, or exercise, scientific notation. Notice the instructor notes. You should read the instructor notes every time. And then on this, you need to put, there's a selfie in here, and there's some handwritten calculations that you have to upload to the data tab. And then this little section here is a little confusing of a picture, but it shows you how to delete annotations or images. So you most likely are only uploading images. If you were trying to write on top of them, you would follow the blue button if you only want to delete that. If you want to actually delete the image, follow the blue 2, and that will help you delete your image. All right, so make sure you read the procedure on the left, converting standard number scientific notation. Gather a pen and pencil. Step 2, write the number on a sheet of paper. Step 3, place the decimal after the first non-zero digit, and it's having you basically write it in scientific notation, that 36000 number. When you get to step 6, it wants you to put it in the data table. So we'll open that up, and it will show up like that, and you're going to be filling it in. And you'll notice that it says repeat steps 2 through 6 for the remaining numbers provided for the data table. So you're going to have to do it for those numbers. Now note, there may be an updated version of this lab where it renames and it has a new data table. At the time of this video, we aren't allowed to remove the old data tables, but there may be some new data tables that you also have to fill out. You can always see them when you get to the end of that list. You'll notice this one doesn't have one in it, but you may have that version of the lab. And it would have a note right in here calling it data table something else. And then you're going to be converting scientific numbers. So there you go. You've got your standard notation. You're just basically taking them out of the scientific notation. Make sure you don't lose any sig figs when you do this. When you do the 8.13, you're going to have a number that has the 8, the 1, and the 3 all the way in it. You don't want to just do like 8. So make sure you do that. And then you're going to put your calculations. So you're going to upload your calculations for the first data table all at once into that picture. And the same for the second data table. And then this is kind of new. So there's this object, and this is, you want to put some kind of object, personal object, something you're okay with being digital in a college class. And just take a picture of it so we know what you're going to use. And you're probably going to use this on most of the labs. The idea is that you're actually going to include it in your pictures later on when you're doing actual experiments. You're going to be putting it in the pictures with, a scale that has a number on it, and then your special object will be right there too. But in this case, you're just going to hold it in front of the computer screen. So that takes you through the first section, we're going to keep going. Make sure they've got the right number of sig figs. There's a reminder there. And then here's some question hints. So check out the question hints. And then there's those 2 questions. So don't forget, even when you finish the data table, you still have to finish the questions at the end. All right, once those are done, you'll be in the next section, which is converting units. And notice this one has, it's got a lot of comments. This one is one that shows what it looks like when a different data table has been designed. So if you look like right in here, so again, right 32 is a fraction. They kind of are taking you through filling out the data tab. Right here's what they're doing. And you look at step 6, it says record your answer in data table 3. Well, if you read right here, it says, I stated earlier in part 1 and 2, it says that you will fill out tables 3 and 4. That is incorrect. Those tables have no point values. Leave them blank. It means fill out tables 5 and 6, which are at the very end of the table tab. You're going to have to keep scrolling to see them. Again, make sure you fill out 5 and 6 and show your work. So that's saying you don't have to do data table 3 or 4. You have to do the others. So let's see what that looks like. So you'll notice that it says there is a data table right there, data table 3, but it's saying you don't have to do that one or that one. And then there's all these photos in here, so you don't have to do those photos. But you do have to do, here's the data table 5 is at the very end. There's data table 5 and data table 6. And in this version, we might be able to move these 2 calculation pictures to the end. But at the moment, calculation data table 5, calculations for data table 6. So it's basically like you leave that whole side on the left empty. There should be one more photo showing in this, and it's the showing for the work for the questions at the end. You can put it in photo 10. All right, so then here we go, the very end. There's some questions, and then there you go. There's some questions at the end that you have to answer. Finally, you're going to be doing solving equations. This one has a note about extra data tables too. So when you look at this one, so there's data table 5 and data table 5b. Calculations data tables for 5 and 5b. So you have to do both of those, 5 and 5b. When you get to the very end, there are questions for you to answer. And then there's questions 3 and 4. Now, you can go on, but this section at the top says stop, skip this experiment. You don't have to do it. We are not using exercise 4. So all of those are set at a 0-point value. Hopefully that helps you understand what's going on in this lab. This one is the first one where there's going to be a delay in the release of it as soon as it's graded because it allows for a late submission. Don't forget, if you turn it in late, it is going to remove 20% of your lab grade. And you don't want to do that. You can see it's not a tricky experiment. It's just some calculations. It's just reviewing everything you've learned to this point.